Welcome, everyone, to Audiobooks from Hell. I am your host, Sean Drager, and I'm very excited about today's show. It's been Women in Horror Month, and I'm awful at planning these shows out because I never know when I'm going to post the shows. But I'm glad that we got one woman on the show before the month's over. But my guest today is Sadie Hartmann, who co-founded Nightworms. So Sadie, welcome to Audiobooks from Hell.
Hi, it's nice to be here. I am the woman of horror.
Yes.
I'm the one.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. And I actually found out about you because I was turned on to Nightworms, this subscription service for horror books, and I absolutely fell in love with what you guys are doing. And since it is February, I was like, I need to try to get more women on the show anyway. And I was like, well, Nightworms isn't audiobooks, but it's still horror adjacent, and there's horror in the title of the podcast, that's hell.
It works.
It works. So it all works.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. So you're a subscriber, or?
Yeah. I, probably 6 months now, I think.
Wow,
Can't remember.
Thank you for supporting us. That's awesome.
It was one of those things where it popped up on Instagram or something, and I was like, what is this? And normally I don't really do subscription boxes. I'm like, well, I'll try, and then I kind of get bored of them.
Totally.
And I was like, well, this is right up my alley. I don't know when I'm going to have time to read any of this stuff, but the books and just the packages put together, it just made for a fun, and it was, year of COVID. So I was like, I need something to lift my spirits every month. So it was definitely it.
Yeah, we did grow a lot during the pandemic, actually. We thought it was going to be complicated because we weren't really sure if all the wheels were going to keep turning. Were the publishers going to still print books? Were the printers still going to be able to print? What was going to happen? We weren't really sure. So it was interesting, to say the least, that it just grew. People were like, oh, I can't go to bookstores. I can't go to the local library. Here's the subscription service that delivers horror right to my door. So
yeah,
that's how we grew.
Yeah, and it's wonderfully curated. I think that's the main key, because there's been horror movie subscription services for Blu-rays and stuff, and they're kind of well, whatever they can get their hands on, and it's the quality of the movies you get are hit or miss. For Nightworms, it's every month has been just a joy to open, and it's books they're either books I've been have on my list of that I want to check out, or authors I've been meaning to check out, and it's all in the independent writer horror community, correct? Or
I mean, mostly.
Yeah.
So I did tweet yesterday, in fact, that we did 17 independent books from independent publishers over the year, over 2020. But we did have some traditionally published books too. We did, Eden by Tim Levin, which was Titan. We had Mexican Gothic, and we did Mallory. So we did some bigger titles and stuff just to make sure that we were covering all of horror, traditionally and independently published. But yeah, it was really cool to support some of those struggling small publishers.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about this quite a bit on this show, because mainly the authors that I have on have all been so far, independently published for the most part. It was some they've dabbled, some have dabbled here and there. I know that Adam Caesar, I keep talking about him. I'm trying to get him on the show. Hey, Adam, if you're watching, let's talk.
Hey, Adam.
Of course, with Clown in the Cornfield was kind of my daughter went nuts when she saw that book. And she's like, Dad, have you heard about this? And I was like, well, actually, I'm Twitter friends with Adam.
She said that?
Yeah, her and her friends had been talking about it. They saw it. They're huge fans of it, of the movie. And then I let her read the book. I was like, well, there's problematic things in the book, but you're 15. You'll figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I read that book when I was 13, so.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah. I was reading Stephen King at that age. I was like, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
But she's a huge fan of the film. And of course, brilliant marketing. Like, it's just a brilliant idea, and the timing was right, for Clown in a Cornfield. And that, that book is just taken off and everything. So,
Yeah, we actually had an Adam Caesar book in one of our earlier packages.
mhm.
We did Tribesman.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Good
which
little,
is really cool.
good little cannibal horror for everybody. Right? That's a cannibal horror,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it is. It's, a movie. It's just like Cannibal Holocaust. I keep hearing, but I've never seen the movie because I'm too much of a chicken. So,
Yeah. I mean,
I can get it from books.
the cannibalism isn't the worst part of Cannibal Holocaust, I guess you could say. Interesting film, to say the least. All those, like, Italian horror, like, cannibal films are all crazy.
Yeah.
Like, for me, they've always been kind of one and done. So I'm like, I've seen it, but um, so what started the seed of Nightworms? What kind of, brought the idea to you?
Yeah. Yeah.
How did it all get started?
It's kind of an interesting origin story, actually, because my business partner Ashley and I were both reps for the original horror subscription company, which was called Nocturnal Reader Box. And I don't know if you've ever heard of Nocturnal Reader Box, but they a long story. They kind of launched into the Bookstagram arena. They kind of parachuted in. They weren't really like part of the community. They just kind of brought their business into the Bookstagram community with a horror subscription, and a bunch of people subscribed to it. Ashley and I were chosen as reps. We would get the package every month, and they did really good for a long period of time. And then they just stopped. Like delivering.
Hmm.
They just up and quit. Like they were saying that they were suffering through some different issues and situations, and they would update customers and whatnot. And then they even released like a couple pre-orders for a signed Stephen King through Cemetery Dance with a slipcase and all this like original stuff that they were doing. And they kept taking money from people.
Oh.
And then they just kind of blew the whole show. So they just bailed, and I think they moved to like Vietnam or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
And they had lawsuits from like various different publishers, like indie publishers. And Brian Keene actually has like a whole couple podcast shows about the whole situation. But when
Mhm.
they left, there was this huge void in the horror community of this like need of people who still wanted to get a subscription package dedicated to adult readers, because so
Mhm.
many subscription packages for readers is geared towards young adult. Um,
Right.
so we just wanted to fill that niche. And Ashley and I had always kind of wanted to do a business together. And I lived in California, and then I moved to Washington where she lives. And then we just decided, like, let's just do this subscription package model. It seems like we know what we're doing, having been
Mhm.
reps for the company. So yeah, that's where it started.
Awesome. You know,
Yeah.
it's funny, the whole horror community, because I'm kind of involved in two. I'm involved in the horror film community, and then there's
Oh,
the
uh-huh.
horror author reader community. Like, there's almost like two separate passionate communities that kind of intersect every now and then. But I
Right.
noticed, like, they are two kind of distinct communities, and it's pretty fascinating to kind of have my toe in both, my foot in both, my feet. I don't
Yeah.
know. You know,
Yeah. Mixed
uh,
metaphor.
yeah, I'll just mix them all up, throw them all in there, um, because I see a lot of people talking about, certain in the film community talking about movies. There's drama and behind the scenes drama, and here's this director's doing this.
Yeah.
Same kind of stuff in the book community with
Yeah,
authors and
definitely.
things. But a lot of the film community haven't read the horror books, and a lot of the horror readers and authors haven't seen some of the movies. Like, I'll see, like, Brian Keene, just finally watching a movie that I've heard about for the past few years. Do you find that those intersections with with the people that subscribe, or with your own friends, or,
Yeah, so there is definitely a distinction because like if you're on the Bookstagram community in the horror genre,
Uh-huh.
the hashtag horror belongs to movies. Um,
Right.
if you click on that, it's all about movies. There's nothing about books in that hashtag, really. So we've made the distinction of hashtagging our photos for horror with hashtag horror fiction,
Okay.
just to make that distinction. Plus, the horror hashtag got banned. Um, like if you click on it, you eventually would kind of dig a little deeper and see that the movies are tagged there, but it gives you like a warning or something because it's
Oh.
so graphic or whatever Instagram deems graphic.
Yeah.
Um, and so on Twitter, though, I do see a lot more of the crossover.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a weirdo because I'm afraid of watching horror movies. Like I'm traumatized by a lot of horror movies. So my husband and we don't really go to them.
Yeah.
And then when we do, we end up watching like the worst ones that are the most scary and like completely ruin ourselves for watching them for years at a time.
Right.
Like we saw Hereditary whenever
Oh
that came
man.
out 2 or 3 years ago,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, we're done.
I
I'm
mean,
not going.
that thing's a doozy. Like Hereditary is an
Right?
absolute doozy.
I
Yeah, that thing
felt,
fucked me up.
yeah, I felt like we were in the shallow end of the pool, and then somebody just like dropped us
Yeah,
into the deep end. It was
especially
terrifying.
when the scene happens,
Yes.
the major shocker scene. You're like, oh,
Yes.
okay, well, let me go pour a whiskey. I'll be right back.
Yeah, no, the last 20 minutes of that movie, like I was climbing up the back of the
Oh
chair.
my god. Yeah.
And then we also watched that other Ari Aster movie, the Midsummer,
Mm-hmm.
and that one too really fucked me up for like too long,
Yeah.
you know?
That. Yeah. I mean, that's what's so interesting is because like, um, the ability for us to be scared with different mediums, like there's almost like a different, a different part of our brain operating.
Yeah,
Even though we're consuming horror, it's definitely different. And I think that for me, books scared me more than films because films I knew, oh, it's a special effect, they're actors. I got the filmmaking aspect, but books, like I mentioned Pet Cemetery, on the last episode because Stephen King was kind of my, he was my introduction into kind of horror fiction, like most people I think. But his books and Pet Cemetery especially like really tapped into something and scared the hell out of me when I was a kid. And I haven't,
yeah,
with the exception of a few movies, I haven't gotten that out of very many movies. Maybe like The Exorcist, Hereditary. There's certain ones I can think of. But so how did you specifically get into horror? So if horror films, you know, you don't want to visit horror films, but your name on Twitter is Mother Horror, and you do all this horror,
yeah.
fiction. What brought you into that? What was kind of your little gateway drug into horror and
Yeah,
books
it definitely
specifically?
wasn't movies, that's for sure. I went to a sleepover where they were showing Freddy Krueger, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna dip out. Like, no, thank you. Um, so my mom is a huge reader, and she had a huge collection of Stephen King and Anne
Mm-hmm.
Rice and Peter Straub, and even like horror adjacent, like Agatha Christie and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. And so I just would binge read all of her books of what was available to me. And then books were often rewards in our household too. So like if
Mm-hmm.
we got good grades on a report card or whatever, we would get to go to the bookstore and pick out books. And so I started getting into horror like really young. Um, like I would read even before I was reading Stephen King and Peter Straub and stuff. I was picking out books at the store for kids that was kind of spooky, like um, um, now I can't think of the author's name, but he has like the Edward Gorey covers on the front.
Oh,
And it's like a little kid who goes and stays with his grandpa or his uncle or whatever, and all this like crazy stuff.
okay.
John Belair's books. So I would read that kind of stuff when I was really little. And then Stephen King, I read Salem's Lot when I was 12 or 13, and then on to all of the rest of his books. went through the Dark Tower series with my mom when I was in high school, and we would have to wait like 6 years between books. Like I always tell new readers now that are reading Stephen King, I'm like, you're really lucky you can binge the whole series right now.
Yeah.
Like we had to wait freaking years
Yeah.
between, some of these books. Like the last book,
I mean,
you
hell,
know,
yeah. Oh, it was forever for the last book, and
oh
even
my
like
God.
even Game of Thrones, people are still waiting for the last
Oh
book.
my God. Yeah. And then if that book ever comes out and people get to read the whole thing, we'll be like, yeah, well, we had to wait 12 years before that last book came out. Um, so yeah, so my mom turned me on to horror. And then, you know, th- it's almost like Stephen King is your gateway to everything
Mm-hmm.
else
Mm-hmm.
because even though he has some new releases, like I haven't even dipped into those yet because I'm busy reading
Yeah.
independent horror and other stuff. So it's
Do
good.
you do you feel like we're kind of in another little kind of renaissance period for horror fiction? Because
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just because I've gotten into the audiobooks, so I am reading more, and my audiobooks are kind of horror adjacent, horror, science fiction, fantasy. But I hover around the horror mostly, or try to anyway. But I've seen like kind of this boom in like the indie publishers. I mean, Grindhouse Press, Severed Press. There's kind of, and I mean, we're seeing it. We are seeing kind of a boom in these, right?
Yeah,
Not just
absolutely. I
me.
would agree with you. I don't know if it's like kind of like you were saying that intersection between movies and books, but I think movies are derivative of books, and then books are, kind of riding on those coattails of what the movies are doing at the box office. So if horror
Mm-hmm.
is like the thing that's getting people to go to the movies, and inspiring like young generations, and then they see that like, oh, that movie was based on a book, they'll go get the book. And then
Mm-hmm.
if there's book readers who are getting really interested in horror and they make a movie out of it, they'll go see the movie. So they're like influencing each other,
Mm-hmm.
and horror is really getting this, I don't know, it's almost like a second wave. Like
Yeah.
when you mentioned like Grindhouse, there's really kind of like this page limit on Grindhouse books where they don't really go over like that sweet
Mm-hmm.
spot of like, it's usually like less than 300 pages.
Yeah.
So they're these like really tightly written short narratives. Whereas like if you look in the 80s when Stephen King was super popular, those books are fucking huge.
I know.
Who has time for that? So it's cool that we could just like like be
Mm-hmm.
reading all this horror that's coming out, and it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean that's until A.S. Coomer's Birth of a Monster comes out. I think he's coming out on Grindhouse. That thing is like he slammed two books together. I think
Oh
it's,
God.
and I'm gonna be narrating it. And I looked at the word count. And I go, dude, this is like a 22-hour audiobook. I was
Yeah,
like,
oh
what
my
are you doing to
God.
me?
That's so intimidating. I mean, I just read Christopher Triana's The 13th Coyote, which is like the thickest splatter
Yeah.
western of all of them, but it didn't feel like it. I mean, you know
Mm-hmm.
how some epic books, they need that much time to explore the multiverse, and this one
Mm-hmm.
just is very detailed and like intricately plotted, so there's a
Yeah.
lot of shit to go over. Um, so yeah, so I mean, it's worth it, but it's not like, some of Stephen King's work is so like, I mean, he's a favorite author of mine, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but it's very padded. Like The Stand is very padded.
He goes on these kind of like, all right, and we're with this character for the next, however long,
Oh,
and now we're
and I
back to the
have,
plot.
yeah, like the unabridged Stand, the first like introduction or whatever, the whole that if there's like 100 pages added to the introduction, you're like, ooh.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like I think with horror specifically in movies and fiction, I think horror, like the sweet spot for a good horror flick, hour and 30,
Yep.
maybe hour and 20. It's like that's it, and that's what Grindhouse Press is kind of, and even the splatter westerns
Yeah.
have kind of Death Heads Presses splatter westerns. Yeah, I mean you want to read it, jump in, read something really quick, have a good little fun time, reading a little slice of horror, and then you move on to the next one. Whereas,
Yeah.
yeah, the bigger books, you're like, okay, well, this is like an investment. I got to invest my time into this.
Yeah,
And I'm
absolutely.
and I'm the same way with audiobooks. I'm just finishing up or finished one up that was like 20 something hours. some dark fantasy. It was good, but holy moly, you do have to kind of like set aside time because it's a lot to invest in.
That's a lot of time. And audiobooks are really hard for me. Like
Hmm.
I downloaded Nick Cutter released like it's called The Breach, and it was just on Audible. Like there is no book format, and I think it's going to be a show or a movie or
Oh,
something.
okay.
So I had to have it. Like Nick Cutter's one of my favorite authors, but to invest in listening to it, I mean, I saw it was like 6 hours or whatever, and I
Hmm.
can only listen to an audio, when I'm jogging or walking or whatever, and it's
Yeah.
taken me forever to finish because
Yeah.
I don't have
Well,
that time.
and I think, we've all been kind of stuck at home. I feel like some people are saying like, oh, there's a boom in audiobooks. They're selling like crazy because more people are home. I'm like, I'm listening to less audio. And that's why I decided to start doing
Yeah.
video for this because I feel like people will sit and watch something, but we all have less time to kind of have headphones on and
Yeah.
specifically listen to something. I can't because I'm in a house with four other people.
Yep.
My wife's working from here. The kids are going to school. And so I can never put my headphones in. So I have to like make time to like, I'm going to go on a walk,
Yep.
get
Yep.
like an
I'm
hour
in
of
the exact same boat.
get a podcast in or get chip away the audiobook where I used to commute. So I feel like a lot more people are picking up actual physical copies of books, and reading more, which is why we've seen kind of this uptick in these publishers. People they're actually moving either physical or Kindle copies.
Yeah.
Um, so I want to dive in a little bit of your history because you've done reviews, kind of like book reviews and things like that. Um, and you've done some writing as far as that goes. You think you just dropped your top 20 horror for 2020,
Yeah.
which is, man, that list is so good. So what kind of brought you into that? Do you write fiction, or have you just been like more in the kind of reviewer side of things? What brought you into all that?
Yeah, I think like going back when Goodreads, I think I joined Goodreads in like 2012, and
Hmm.
so my mom convinced me to get on there, and so we were kind of writing reviews for each other. Like she would read my reviews and I would read her reviews, and we would get picks for each other. Um, and then I started noticing that like people were following me on Goodreads, so it wasn't just my mom and I. There were other people who were like picking up recommendations. And then Instagram, I noticed there was the community bookstagram, and I
Hmm.
joined that and had this dedicated Instagram account for just posting books and talking about books and reviewing. And then from there, Cemetery Dance and Scream Magazine both invited me to write book reviews for their platforms. So I did that for like 2 years. Before I started kind of branching out into some other freelance writing.
Hmm.
Um, and I realized, like, there's a real freelance writing market out there for different platforms who are sharing content. So I'm writing for Lit Reactor and Tor Nightfire. I sold an article to Fangoria last year.
Nice.
Um, just kind of um, talking about what you're already passionate about
Hmm.
and then selling it to a platform who is also, reaching an audience for horror. So I do that, and then I used to dabble more into fiction writing,
Hmm.
but it's just not for me. Like I don't
Yeah.
know how authors do it, honestly. Like I'm on the reviewing critical side, but then that's why I feel like I'm so sensitive to authors and so kind of like protective of them because
Yeah.
having written my own stuff and put it out there for people to criticize like I do, like, that's hard, and
Yeah.
and you put all that work and effort and thought and feeling into a project, and then to have somebody just kind of like shit on it would
Yeah.
would be really hard. So
Yeah. I feel the same way. I used to try to write. I mean, I always am like, I want to write, and then I try to write, and I feel like I'm a decent writer, but it's so daunting to me. I couldn't imagine how anyone could sit down, I mean, and write like a good review, because I'm always thinking like, it's so much easier to shit on something when you're reviewing
yeah,
something,
yeah,
but like to get it in the critical space, the critical thought and trying to like, all right, well, here's what works with the story, here's what doesn't, and do that when you're and not be an asshole, like that takes a lot of I think it takes a lot of talent. So
Well, and see, in my opinion, it's really hard to write a negative review. And my editor
maybe I'm just an
at
asshole.
yeah, maybe you just suck. No, you're mean. No,
I'm just a jerk.
my editor at Scream wants us to have like 1 or 2 star reviews sometimes. He doesn't just
Yeah,
want 5 and 4 star
yeah,
reviews, which for me, it's like I don't promote those. I'll read them and I'll write them and
yeah,
I'll put them on Goodreads and Amazon and stuff, but I don't promote that because who wants to read what they shouldn't be reading? You know what I mean? Like, don't people
yeah,
want to know what they should be reading? Um,
exactly.
so those I just kind of let fall by the wayside, and whoever wants to pick that up can pick that up. But for Scream, he wants those 1 and 2 star reviews, and I'm like, okay, well, how am I going to do this? Because I don't typically pick up books that I think are not going to work for me either. So I
Yeah,
don't really read, outside of what I know to already be good. I don't know. It's a fine balance to
yeah,
find what works for you and what doesn't in the review space.
yeah. And when I was trying to review movies for a while, and I would be sent things that I didn't like had no interest in watching, and I'm like, I know that I'm gonna watch this. I'm probably gonna hate it, and then I have to write a negative review on it. I don't like that.
Yeah. No. And typically I don't waste my time on books that I'm not
Right.
enjoying either because I have too much to read.
Yeah.
So it's like if I don't finish it, then I don't feel qualified to leave a review. So
Yeah.
sometimes I have to force myself to pull out a 1 or 2 star, and I don't like doing that.
Well, that's, I mean, so, I mean, that's the cool, that's, I think that's what's cool about your story, especially is because you gained kind of this following and this reputation through like Bookstagram, which is, people just, like, what, this, I'm reading this right now, and here's what I think about it, right? On Instagram,
I mean, yeah,
hashtag.
basically it's we're book nerds and we're very
Yeah.
weird. We're very weird. Like, we used to talk about how embarrassing it is to be caught out in public, like taking a picture of a book. Cause here you are, oh, this fall tree is so pretty. I'm going to hold my book up to it and like
Yeah.
take a little picture. And then you kind of look around like, who's watching me do this? So yeah, we're all a bunch of dorks.
So
Um,
funny.
but yeah, I was in that. I've been in that space for 5 years,
Hmm.
um, and just kind of getting to know that community, which is a very different community than what book Twitter
Yeah.
is, and the horror space there, because that's almost like forward thrusting of promotion and just kind of like snippets of information, and it's not very visually oriented.
Yeah.
So it's they're two sides of a different coin.
Yeah. You've built up friendships with authors.
Yeah.
And you said have you been on Brian Keene's podcast? I know that you interact with Brian Keene quite a bit, and you know, he's a splatterpunk god.
Yeah, Brian. So Brian is he's like a mentor
Hmm.
in a way. I haven't been on the podcast yet, but he's more of like somebody who I look up to in a way that he has like navigated the industry with
Hmm.
this wisdom and just this kind of like uh, a Jedi master type of persona where he just like is very kind and uplifting and a strong presence in the community, but he also doesn't really take a lot of bullshit.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, anytime you come into a community and you start getting attention, if anytime like you start making waves or people are listening to you or whatever, like you're bound to start making different camps of people. So you have people who like you and like your content and enjoy what you're doing, and then you have people who don't like you,
Hmm.
and you know that creates tension and drama and stress in your life. And anytime you have humans thrown together in a community, there's
Yep.
going to be drama. And so he's helped me navigate
Yeah.
uh, through some of that stuff.
Yeah. Because I've seen some of that from just outside looking in, and the example that I think he leads in those types of scenarios is like, all right, let's talk this over. Let's everyone, here we go. Let's come together. Let's, and that, I think that's a rare gift. I think, people, certain people just have that. And he definitely, I always saw the name Brian Keene with like, just, batshit crazy, horror novels.
Yeah.
But the you know but most horror fans, horror writers, horror filmmakers, we're all just nerds. We're all just
I
gentle
know.
nerds.
We're all nerds, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just different levels of involvement in the
Yeah.
community, and he's been in it. Like he'll post pictures of, oh, here's me with these group of people in this group. I mean, it's decades and decades of time in that genre. And then I've really, really been around on Twitter and engaging with authors and the community and stuff on that level for like 3 years.
Hmm.
So I'm a newbie, I'm still just kind of getting my feet wet in a
Yeah.
sense over there. So he's been super helpful.
Yeah.
Gabino Iglesias is another one that's been super helpful. And then just like solid rock women who have like been in this no nonsense position for a really long time, like Linda Addison, Becky Spratford, Ellen Datlow. Like they've all been instrumental in just
Hmm.
like offering me help and like talking to me behind the scenes about different things and helping nightworms and being supportive. There's a lot of supportive people in the industry that do behind the scenes work
Hmm.
that are instrumental in uplifting the community. So
Yeah.
that's
I
been
want
cool to meet them.
I do want to talk a little bit about women authors in the horror space, and women authors in general, because I was talking with Anna Mossacat. She's a author for a cyberpunk book that I'm narrating right now called Behind Blue Eyes.
Uh-huh.
And in our conversation, I don't think this was recorded. I think this was when we were first meeting. She does a really great job of marketing herself and her books, and that's kind of what brought her to my attention, was just a bang up job she did marketing herself. And she
Yeah.
said that, like, she goes, women writers, we have to almost be the best at marketing, because that's the only way we can really get attention. As opposed to being, because sci-fi, and you think of like sci-fi and horror, well, that's, there's men, it's a man space.
Yeah.
um, you know but she said, when she said that to me, I thought that was very interesting to think about, because I mean, she's done such a great job of it that I didn't even think about that. But she said it's always like running, going uphill all the time. For her is how she feels, so she feels she has to push back harder. Have you had conversations like that with women authors that you've talked to, or?
Yeah, for sure. I think that that's the consensus among all women, even women who are in like the review space, because if you look at a lot of podcasts and people talking about books, those are a lot of dudes sitting around talking about horror too.
Yeah.
And so then you have women who want to sit around and talk about horror. I mean, we're fans too. I mean, this was prevalent in the Bookstagram community as well. You
Hmm.
would look through the Stephen King book fan hashtag or whatever, and it was all dudes showing their Stephen King collection, and here comes all these girls with like, here's our Stephen King collection, and it's just like, but are you really fans? They would like kind of gatekeep it a little
Yeah.
bit. um and so yeah, so I think women do have a hard time um just being validated in their
Hmm.
work, especially in like extreme horror circles. Like whenever people are talking about extreme horror, it's always like a laundry list of like all the dudes, like Skip Inspector and Brian Keene and Edward Lee, and like it just goes down the list. It's all a bunch of dudes,
Hmm.
but there's some women out there, like Kath Koja is a
Yeah.
freaking grand master of freaking weird ass creepy body horror, extreme bloody sick stuff,
Hmm.
and she needs to be recognized for that. And so yeah, so marketing like as hard and then getting in that space and then just having guys kind of elbow you out.
Hmm.
I have seen that when I walked into the review space on Twitter, there were guys who have been doing it for a lot longer than me, and, I don't think they really appreciated the fact that there was a woman coming in here and talking about the genre like she knew what the fuck she was talking about. And I got a little bit of the elbow squeeze, like,
Yeah.
you're in our space, get out. I don't
Yeah.
think you know what you're talking about. Or, oh, if you don't like that, they would go over my reviews and be like, oh, well, if you don't like, books about dead babies being crushed on rocks, then you're not really a horror fan, or if you
Yeah.
haven't read Lovecraft, you're not really a horror fan, that kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
That
You
doesn't fly.
Yeah, and that whole gatekeeping kind of stuff always, rubs me the wrong way because, I did come into horror a little bit late, mainly because of my upbringing. Is very strong Christian upbringing, and that was not allowed, so I had to kind of navigate and kind
Yeah.
of was late, a little bit late to the game compared to some others, especially to movies. So books were kind of my into horror because I could smuggle those in my backpack from the library without my parents seeing.
Yeah.
Um, but um, but I've seen, but we're all kind of on our little discovery journey. So when I see, you see guys all the time saying like, "Well, I'm watching, I don't know, I'm watching Halloween for the first time," and you know, no one really cares. And then you have
Right.
then you have a woman saying like, "Oh, I'm watching, Army of Darkness for the first time or something," and then like, "How? Oh, I can't believe you haven't seen that. What did you know here?" And they like all of a sudden guys are like, "Well, let me tell." Okay, little girl, let me tell you how it's supposed to
Oh,
be.
yeah. You're told, oh, this is the thing right here. That's the stuff. I mean, every single Women of Horror list that comes out on any major platform on the internet always
Yeah,
leads off with Anne Rice, Mary Shelley, Shirley Jackson. It's like these women, we hear them all the time. There
yeah,
are a slew of women out there who are putting out good work. Like,
yeah.
let's really take a deeper dive and not just name the same three women all the time. You
I
know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I almost feel like women especially have such a fantastic perspective on horror themselves, especially body horror. I mean, I'm married, I have 3 kids. I've seen some shit.
Yeah.
And I'm like uh I think women would maybe know better and or may be able to write more cringeworthy stuff, if we just give them the space, because that's the thing. Like, there's never been, like, and I think the two major categories, genres that seem to be or had been kind of a boys' club have been like science fiction and horror. Um, cyberpunk is a very, and I'm just in it right now because I'm narrating it, but that's a very kind of male dominated space.
Yeah.
Because there's a sexy robot. Um, but
Yeah.
um, but I've never, but I feel like I don't know where I'm going. I'm rambling all of a sudden. My
No,
brain's
you
going
were on the right vein. Like I definitely agree that, you know, women, I remember reading a book. My mom gave me a book when I was 16 or 17 or whatever. And she was like, you have to read this book. And it was called The Gift of Fear. And it was written by a cop. And the cop was basically telling women, like, we need to listen to our gut instincts more. Like, so often in society, we're told to be polite and be nice when our gut instinct is telling us that something is cringy or wrong. Like, a
hmm
woman will get into an elevator and a man will be like, oh, hold the door or whatever. And you immediately have this red flag about his looks or
Right.
like his presence. And we're supposed to be like, oh, don't judge people like that or whatever. So you're like, oh, okay, even though you have that red flag, you go ahead and let him in. Same thing with like being in a dark parking lot. You don't want to
hmm
seem like you're weak. So you don't, pull out your pepper spray because you don't want people to see you being scared. But you should because you're in a
Yeah.
dark parking lot. And so women, we are already on the defense. We're already prey. There's predator and there's prey. We're definitely prey. And so we walk around with this fear. And so, yeah, in order to write horror, we're tapping that fear. We're tapping, like you said, that body horror of what happens to our bodies when there's a baby inside of it, like
hmm
invading our actual body.
yeah.
It's pretty weird. I remember like standing in the shower one time during my first pregnancy and looking down at my belly, which was rippling because my kid was like rolling around in there. And I was
Yeah.
just looking at my like big old belly with this like wave. It was just out of body. Like you're just like, what the hell is
Right.
happening? you know, it's pretty weird. So yeah, just we tap all that stuff to write horror and to read it and respond to it. And women need to express themselves,
hmm
and men need to listen, for lack
Yeah.
of better words.
I agree. What have been some of your gonna put you on the spot. If you can't name names, fine. If you can't think of the names. But what are some of your favorite female authors right now? Like if you were, so it's Women in Horror Month. What are some names that you've tried to help kind of lift up above everything else this
Yeah.
month specifically?
Yeah, this month specifically. Okay, I've
Yeah.
been on like a huge Kenzie Jennings fan. She wrote Red Station and Reception for Death's Head Press. Um, Big on Haley Piper. Haley Piper writes um, everything. She can write cosmic horror. She can write slashers. She can write body horror. She has a collection coming out. She's amazing. I would definitely start off with The Worm and His Kings, which just came out. Ooh, I want to say it came out this year.
Okay.
I could be wrong. It could have been like the tail end of last year, but maybe this year.
Time's
Um,
relative these days. Time's
yeah,
just
no,
like,
it really is. It's like, is it the weekend yet? I don't know. I live a weekend every day.
yeah.
Um, Also, Cynthia Paleo. She's a poet, but she also writes novels, and she also writes like in a young adult vein. Um, and also V Castro. V Castro writes very sultry, kind of sexy creature features and slashers and things like that. Kath Koja, I already mentioned.
Mhm.
She had a re-release with the Cipher, but she also had a collection come out, which I think is nominated for a Bram Stoker. Anya Allborn is somebody that I got into. I read one of her novels called Brother, and it's kind of um, like a cannibal family, and they like adopted a kid into their cannibal family who like realizes that like this isn't normal and he wants to get out of his cannibal family.
As you
It's
do.
very very intense. It's a very intense, brutal read. It's really good. Um, Christy DeMeester. I'm always talking about Christy DeMeester and Nadia Bolkin and Christine Morgan. Brian Keene's fiance or girlfriend, or Mary San Giovanni, writes cosmic horror. She's like the queen of cosmic horror. Um, so yeah, I could go on all day.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. It's
I
good
did
stuff.
write an article for Cemetery Dance with my top 20 um, female horror
Awesome.
books. Yeah, so they can check that out.
That's good stuff. I'm looking at the time here. Okay. Okay, good. So when so Women in Horror Month is fairly new, I want to say. Or no. I only kind of started learning about it because I was doing a horror movie podcast at the time, and my co-host was like, "We need to do something for Women in Horror Month." When did specifically that start, or has that been a thing
Yeah, I want to say it's
for a
like in
while?
its 12th year.
Okay.
Um, but for me personally, I only knew about it like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah. I
I
think 3 or 4
wasn't
years ago is for me too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And also, they just released a statement this year saying that Women in Horror Month should be picked up as a movement that could be any month of the year. They don't want people just to focus on February anymore,
Yeah.
because February is also Black History Month, and it's
Yeah.
kind of like we need to spread it out.
Right. What
So,
which is almost why I've been kind of like, it's been hard, for like podcasts and stuff. It's like, I mean, I don't I don't like having just one month. Oh, this is the month we focus on this, even for
yeah,
Black History Month. I mean, it's great. It's fantastic, but these are the types of voices we need to have elevated, I think, all the time.
all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, yeah. I think people in the genre like really know that and promote that and
Yeah.
respond to that and do that. But I think it's mainly for like newcomers into the genre to see like, hey, for Halloween, a lot of people do this on Bookstagram. For Halloween, I'm going to be read horror for the whole month of October,
Mhm.
and then they start gathering all these recommendations. So it's like I put a huge push on all the horror in October,
Mhm.
not because I only read horror in October, but because so many
So
people
people are
do.
seeking it out. Yeah.
And so Women in Horror Month is more like for new people looking in the genre and being like, I've never read a woman in horror. I've been reading horror for 40 years and never read
Yeah.
a woman. And it's like, here, saturate them with this.
That's great. Yeah, it's a good thing. Elevating anyone's voices. I'm a huge fan of, and I know that you on your website, I think you did. You are trying to do your favorite kind of Oh, where is it? Books for. Oh, where is it? Um, I'm having a. For Black Voices, you put a list up there on your website. I don't know how old this was. You're the bookshop.org.
Oh
You put
yeah.
up some special like for each month some books for people to check out.
Yeah, so bookshop.org actually is really cool too because different people can go in there and curate lists for others um, based on, your recommendations
Hmm.
for a specific like category. So yeah, so I have one for Black horror authors, and I also have one for women, and I have one for, summer. So there's like different themes,
Yeah.
and you could go in there and make as many lists as you want. And it's just really kind of cool because I think to celebrate marginalized voices along with everything else normalizes it in a way that you're not just being like, hey, right now is a hot minute to talk about this thing,
Yeah.
and then we're going to just move on to the status quo for the rest of the year. So it's like, no, let's just normalize reading this stuff all the time and
Yeah.
not make like, this huge distinction between I'm reading a marginalized,
Yeah.
communities
It's
books
a
this week or whatever.
Yeah. It's a good launch. I think it's a good launch pad, a good discussion starter. Definitely, like you said, for newcomers. But I didn't know you can do these lists on Bookshop. That's great.
Yeah,
And
Bookshop pulls those books from independently owned
right.
bookstores. So, if we could stop lining the pockets of Amazon
Yeah.
and like, send those funds to people who seriously need them, then that would be
Yeah.
cool. That's a win-win.
Yeah. No, at bookshop.org. Look, they don't. The books don't arrive as fast as Amazon. Okay, but
No, they don't.
the cost is very similar, and it's a great. I've discovered quite a bit through just perusing bookshop.org and through like lists like those lists that you do. That's a great tool that you can't really find on Amazon. Amazon's just a big of just I don't know. Amazon's like they just throw everything out there, seeing
Yeah.
what sticks, and then there's algorithms and all that kind of stuff you need to like figure out like as an author like how am I gonna get people to see this book?
Yeah, and it's really cool because if you sign up for an account through Bookshop to curate lists, so if you're just like a content creator, like you have a website, like Sci-Fi and Scary or the Ladies of Horror Fiction, they make lists as well. And then those um, books that they sell from their recommendations, their affiliate link, um, Bookshop will give them a little cash
Okay.
into their account, and then that helps with their like website fees. Um, so, websites who do all this promotion and stuff for free could actually make a little bit
Yeah.
money back on their domain names and stuff, hosting
Very
fees.
very cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
We are starting to run out of time, so I want to close this out by talking about Death's Head Press because you just recently started working for them as a either publicist or social
Yeah.
media. So let's talk a little bit about Death's Head Press because they've
Yeah.
kind of
So,
emerged as a favorite publisher of mine. Those the splatter westerns they got
oh,
that's
that's
kind of
good
like
to hear.
that's the thing that they really kind of hit the ground running with.
I agree. Um, yeah. So, like a traditional publicist would probably be in charge of setting up like events at bookstores and
Yeah.
signings and stuff like that. So during the pandemic, I saw more of a need for people to have a social media presence.
Yeah.
And some publishers have other jobs,
Mm-hmm.
like we were talking about side hustle. A lot of these indie presses also are doing other things like the owner of Grindhouse Press. I mean, she has a job. So
Yeah.
that's kind of one of her side hustles. And if she is busy at work, she doesn't have time to promote books on her social media platform. And so I just kind of was seeing this need in the community of just like more traction and more promotion from the publisher side of it. And I am already super passionate about Death's Head Press, like you were saying, the
Mm-hmm.
splatter westerns. And I was setting up book parties and review parties for the splatter western series already through Nightworms. And so we just in talking, I pitched him the idea of like, let me just help you on social media. Like you clearly like are busy and you have all this other obligations and you're trying to print books and you're trying
Mm-hmm.
to sign deals. Let me take care of the part I already know how to do, really well. And I can just do that for you. And so, yeah, I'm working doing their social media, their Instagram and their Twitter specifically, but also helping like organize reviews and set that up because I have a connection with reviewers on Bookstagram
Yeah.
and Twitter. So
Yeah, they really did find like a niche for themselves with these splatter westerns. And it's like I think they're the only ones doing that sort of thing right now. Do you think it's important for like for a publisher to kind of, Grindhouse Press? They're kind of these short little, you know what you're getting with a Grindhouse Press.
yeah.
Death's Head Press, they have those. They do more than just those, but that kind of has kind of skyrocketed with the popularity. I mean, is it just because like nobody's done it before? Was the right time? Like what?
I mean,
What do you
they
think
were
contributed
that
to that?
they had like a perfect storm with the splatter westerns because, like you said, they've garnered 8 Splatter Punk Award nominations for 2020, and tons of splatter western books were nominated by fans. I mean, so readers are really into them. They're collectible is one
Yeah.
of their main things. Those covers by Justin T.
God,
Coons
those
are
covers are
like,
so damn good.
right? I mean, you want to hang that artwork
I
on
want
your
all of
wall.
them. I want to hang them. I
Yeah.
don't know where I'd put them, but I want them all. I want posters of
Yeah,
them
no,
all.
they're so good. And so I think it's just a matter of, people already love Western, and then you
Mm-hmm.
add the element of horror and suspense and gore in a genre that people already are nostalgic about, like with
Mm-hmm.
Westerns, and it's just like the perfect thing. And so it's really cool to see Jared and Patrick like develop that series into something that they're like currently looking for a more like variety and diverse voices to bring to the table, like
Right.
like some Mexican Americans and indigenous Americans and just different voices that can add to the Western perspective,
Yeah.
and not just be these cowboys, but also like the people on the other side of the coin who need their voices to be heard too.
Um,
So
the potential for that is insane too, because
yeah.
there's like I mean, those stories actually would lend more to the horror side of things anyway, just because like, especially the indigenous, peoples, like there's so many stories, you know. I mean, I don't know, sky's the limit with this stuff, but that,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all about that for sure. Um, it reminds me of oh gosh, these splatter westerns remind me of the movie Bone Tomahawk.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like
I mean, I
imagine
haven't
like a
seen it,
whole
but
series of books with that vibe, which
yeah.
there's a few like that's the thing. There's a few Western horror, but Westerns generally, modern Westerns, I guess with the exception of like Tombstone, haven't.
Pocket's good for you.
I'm
Hot Pocket's good for you.
Our hot pocket's good for me. I'm in the middle of
Hot Pocket.
I'm in the
No,
middle
hot pockets aren't
of
good
a
for you.
video here.
Hot Pocket.
No, they're not good for you. They will make your stomach hurt.
Oh. I'm eating one right now.
So you're eating one right now.
Oh, oopsies.
You'll be fine. They're perfect. It's like broccoli.
That's awesome.
I thought I would get through this video without any interruptions, and I think
We almost did actually.
my
Those
other I know
pretty
my other son was over here, and I was going, and he's like, and he said some little smart ass remark and walked off. So I don't know what it. So I'll have to see if he see what he said when I leave. I don't edit these. This is what
Hey,
happens.
it totally, yeah, it's authentic.
So anyway, what was I saying? Oh, westerns in particular, film-wise, don't seem to sell. Nobody's like, well, they don't do many westerns. And even like books, like the western genre, people like it, but I've never seen like the western kind of explode like these. It's just that combination. Just seems to have people seem to have really
Yeah,
taken
I
to it.
mean,
So it's great.
Westerns really do lend themselves to horror, like you were
Yeah.
saying. I mean, there's just like a lot of hardship and a lot of, just kind of that whole mentality of like the wild, wild west where anything goes and there's a lot of lawlessness and a lot of like bad dudes running around and, women weren't treated well. And,
Yeah.
like nobody but white cowboys were treated well. So it's just kind of like, there's a lot of room and a lot of space there to explore.
And I mean, I love when you mentioned the idea of the, some books revolving around more of the indigenous Native Americans, because if you look at like film, and I was just thinking about this the other day. Somebody had posted something about it on social media. Whereas every movie that people think is lifting up, like, well, that's a movie about Native Americans. Well, you look at the main star and it's like some white dude, like it's Christian Bale or it's whatever. I mean, the point of the story is how mistreated and how Americans came in and we mistreated the population that was here first. But all these movies are starring like white guys.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
I mean,
yeah,
the idea of just, getting that out of the way and hearing a full story from that perspective is, I would love to see that.
Yeah, I agree. And Jared and Patrick are very much about that too. So it's really cool to see the different people that they're signing on to write stories for 2022.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
I don't know if anything's been announced yet, but I know that a Jewish author may be having a splatter western. I'm not going to make a full announcement because I don't think it's
Well, and this month actually, Regina Garza Mitchell is releasing one, and that's going to be from a Mexican American perspective. Awesome. So definitely excited for that.
Very cool. Well, I have to. My kids are
it's like lunchtime,
hunting at the door. I mean, they say that our cupboards are stocked. Everybody, my kids are not starving. They just want someone to provide it for them.
Yeah. You've been having your little party in here, and now it's time for their time.
This is my time.
Yeah.
Well, Sadie Hartmann, thank you so much for talking to me about and to all of us listening and watching about what you do about Nightworms. Is it just nightworms.com?
Yeah, nightworms.com. It was really great to be on the show with you. And if you ever want to advertise audiobooks from hell, in the package or whatever you want to do that, you could hit me up.
I'll do that. I've been thinking about making stickers. So
yeah, see, and everyone should know that if you have a horror related business or your podcast or your whatever, but you're passionate about horror, we just put those in there for free. It costs you just to print them and send them to us, and then we'll just put those in there for free.
And I've discovered so much good stuff. Like the books are just part of it. I've discovered an amazing tea company, some great coffee.
Yep.
And I kind of and everyone has their social media, and I kind of follow everybody that's listed, and it's a fantastic. I mean, that's the great thing about it is it's a fantastic marketing opportunity for someone in a horror adjacent business, but it's also like for just discovery purposes. I've discovered so much great stuff just by being a member. So it's like, I think an average of $40 a month or something like that, but that's like 2-3 books plus a bunch of cool stuff and plus discovery. It's like it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, and thank you so much for saying that. I mean, that's really what we're shooting for too, is just we don't want to saturate people with too much crap. So it's it's all stuff that you can use, or you can use at one time, like drink that coffee or use that sticker, but then it's like a one and done. You don't have to have that crap everywhere all over your house. So
it's funny. It's like I kind of spread the stickers among my kids, the kids who are more, my daughter, is really into horror. So I'll kind of give her a sticker and or a bookmark, and it's pretty great.
Yeah, I love
she's
that.
the avid reader of the family. Me and her are kind of the avid readers. So
that's cool.
We'll always collect bookmarks. All right. Well.
All right.
You can go to nightworms.com. Sadie's information is right. Let's see if I can get this right. Oh, there.
Yeah.
Under her right there. Sadie Hartmann
over here
at Sadie Hartmann on Twitter. Is it the same on Instagram? We want people to follow Nightworms.
Mother Horror, Nightworms.
Okay.
That's
Google
pretty much everywhere.
You'll find Sadie.
Yep, you'll find it.
All right, Sadie. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today.
Okay, thanks, Sean.
We'll talk again soon, I'm sure.
Okay, sounds good.